Opening a file on your computer, sorry, specifically one that was living in the PyCharm project directory, involves a very simple function called open. And we are taking the contents of this file and we're putting them into a string variable, sort of. That my file variable isn't really a string variable yet. It actually represents that file. So it's a string variable with some extra stuff there that allows it to keep track of things. But we'll get into that in just a second. You can kind of think of a file as a persistent string variable in and of itself. A text file just has text in it, and it can do other things, but a basic text file that contains text can be read and worked with much like you would work with a string. So string processing, all that work we did with extracting emails, things like that, all of that applies here. So when we open a file, we're going to put it into a variable. Sometimes this is referred to as the file pointer because it's a variable, it's an object that represents that file. So it has its own properties and things like that. But a file object contains the contents of this file, and it also uses the open. The open function also takes a second argument called a flag that refers to how we're going to use that file. And what flag we include here dictates what is allowable with that file. If we use the read flag, obviously that's for reading a file. If I use this flag and this doesn't exist, I'll get an error. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. If the file doesn't exist and I open it for reading, it will give me an error. Append, you can think of like a journal or a diary where every time you open the file with append, you're going to just add to what's already there. You're going to create a new entry. You're going to supplement what's there, anything you add to that file. So it's writing to the file, but it doesn't overwrite what's in the file already. Write will actually write over what's in the file. So it's important to know in your head which one you want to do, because if I open this with a W and it already has stuff in there, it's gonna write over it. It's gonna delete it and start from a blank file. Append will add to that. Whichever one you want to do. If you do the other one, it could have some weird results or mess up your data or whatever. So you just want to be mindful of that. Create is an interesting one. Create is a lot like write, but create will give you an error if the file exists already. So it wants to open a file for writing, but it wants it to be a new file. So if you already have this and you choose create, you'll get an error in that case. So just important to think about what is it that I'm doing with that file at this moment.